I think we need to hear what Governor Perry's saying. He's saying that his policy was right. He believes that what he did was right. He thinks he's going about it the wrong way. I believe your policy is wrong. Why, ladies and gentlemen, why do we inoculate people with vaccines at public schools? Because we're afraid of those diseases being communicable between people at school. And therefore, to protect the rest of the people at school, we have vaccinations to protect those children. Unless Texas has a very progressive way of communicating diseases in their school by way of their curriculum, then there is no government purpose served for having little girls inoculated at the force and compulsion of the government. This is big government run amok. It is bad policy, and it should not have been done.
I'm going to move on, Governor Perry, unless you want to say anything else.
Look, I think we've made decisions in Texas. We put a $3 billion effort in to find the cure for cancer. There are a lot of different cancers out there. Texas, I think, day in and day out, is a place that protects life. I've passed parental notification pieces of legislation. I've been the most pro-life governor in the state of Texas. And what we were all about was trying to save young people's lives in Texas.
Then give parents the opt-in as opposed to teach them, let them opt in, but do not force them to have this inoculation.
All right, let's take a question from the audience. Give us your name, please.
I'm Taylor. I'm from Orange Park, Florida, with the People's Tea Party. My question is, health insurance is expensive because health care is expensive. What is your plan to reduce the cost of health care so that our insurance premiums and other related costs can also be reduced?
All right, Mr. Cain.
First, repeal Obamacare in its entirety.
Amen.
Secondly, pass market-driven, patient-centered reforms, such as, under the current code, the deductibility of health insurance premiums, regardless of who pays for it. But as you know, I want to throw that out and put in my 999 plan. Secondly, the other thing that we can do in order to help bring down the cost is pass loser pay laws. Doctors will tell you that one of their biggest expenses is medical liability insurance because of frivolous lawsuits. Secondly, restructure Medicare. Another big cost that's passed on to us as consumers related to all the bureaucracy associated with that. Another market-driven idea, allow association health plans. When I ran the National Restaurant Association, which today has 14 million employees, we wanted to design a system for health insurance that was going to be customized for our industry. We could not do that. We need to be allowed to do that, and so should other organizations and other associations.
Thank you, Mr. Cain. Governor Romney, a lot of the Tea Party supporters here and around the country have a real serious problem with the health care mandate that you got through in Massachusetts. Is there anything you want to say to them to revise or amend? Do you stand by what you did?
Absolutely. And let me come back and just mention something that Herman Cain is right. And let's come back to this, getting the cost of health care down. I happen to think that's an enormous issue. And I agree with almost everything you said, Herman. But the reason health care is so expensive, I think you hit the nail on the head. You said it's not just because of insurance, it's because of the cost of providing care. And one reason for that is the person who receives care in America generally doesn't care how much it costs, because once they've paid their deductible, it's free. And the provider, the more they do, the more they get paid. We have something that's not working like a market. It's working like a government utility. And so what we have to do is make sure that individuals have a concern and care about how much something costs. And for that to happen, health savings accounts. Give people a stake in what the cost of insurance is going to be, what the cost of care is going to be. Co-insurance, where people pay a share of the bill, that makes a difference. And with regards to Massachusetts care, I'm not running for governor. I'm running for president. And if I'm president, on day one, I'll direct the Secretary of Health and Human Services to grant a waiver from Obamacare to all 50 states. It's a problem. It's bad law. It's unconstitutional. I'll get rid of it.
All right, Governor Perry, you're a firm believer in states' rights. Can a state like Massachusetts go ahead and pass health care reform, including mandates? Is that a good idea, if Massachusetts wants to do it?
Well, that's what Governor Romney wanted to do, so that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, that was the plan that President Obama has said himself was the model for Obamacare. And I think any of us who know that that piece of legislation will draw a line between the doctor-patient relationship that will cost untold billions of dollars is not right for this country. And frankly, I don't think it was right for Massachusetts when you look at what it's costing the people of Massachusetts today. But at the end of the day, that was their call. So from just purely states get to decide what they want to do, I agree with that. And in the state of Texas, we don't think that's the way we want to go.
All right, I'm going to let you respond, but I want Governor Romney to respond first.
First, I'd be careful about trusting what President Obama says, all right, as to what the source was of his plan, number one. But number two, if you think what we did in Massachusetts and what President Obama did are the same, boy, take a closer look. Because number one, he raised taxes $500 billion and helped slow down the U.S. economy by doing it. We didn't raise taxes. He cut Medicare by $500 billion. This, the Democrat president, the liberal, so to speak, cut Medicare, not Republicans, the Democrat. We dealt with the people in our state that were uninsured, some 9%. His bill deals with 100% of the people. He puts in place a panel that ultimately is going to tell people what kind of care they can have. We didn't do anything like that. What the president did was simply wrong. It is the wrong course for America. It is not what we did in Massachusetts. The people of Massachusetts favor our plan by 3-1. And states can make their own choices.
All right.
I'm happy to stand up for what we did, but I'll tell you one thing, what he did is wrong for America, and I'll stop it.
Thank you, Governor. Before I get to Michele Bachmann, I want to you're a physician, Ron Paul, so you're a doctor. You know something about this subject. Let me ask you this hypothetical question. A healthy 30-year-old young man has a good job, makes a good living, but decides, you know what? I'm not going to spend $200 or $300 a month for health insurance because I'm healthy, I don't need it. But, you know, something terrible happens, all of a sudden he needs it. Who's going to pay for if he goes into a coma, for example? Who pays for that?
In a society that you accept welfareism and socialism, he expects the government to take care of
What
him.
do you want?
But what he should do is whatever he wants to do and assume responsibility for himself. My advice to him would have a major medical policy, but not before.
But he doesn't have that. He doesn't have it, and he needs intensive care for 6 months. Who pays?
That's what freedom is all about, taking your own risk. This whole idea that you have to prepare and take care of everybody.
But Congressman, are you saying the society should just let him die?
No. I practiced medicine before we had Medicaid in the early 1960s when I got out of medical school. I practiced at Santa Rosa Hospital in San Antonio, and the churches took care of them. We never turned anybody away from the hospital, and we've given up on this whole concept that we might take care of ourselves, assume responsibility for ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, our churches would do it. This whole idea, that's the reason the cost is so high. The cost is so high, we cause a dump it on the government, becomes a bureaucracy, it becomes special interest, it kowtows to the insurance companies and the drug companies. Then on top of that, you have the inflation. The inflation devalues the dollar. We have lack of competition. There's no competition in medicine. Everybody's protected by licensing. We should actually legalize alternative health care, allow people to practice what they want.
Congressman Bachmann, go ahead and weigh in on this hypothetical 30-year-old who needs 6 months of intensive care, has no insurance.
Well, first of all, what I want to say, with all due respect to the governors, I've read this health care bill. I've been fighting this fight the last couple of years. President Obama's Obamacare bill. And waivers and executive orders won't cut it. If you could solve Obamacare with an executive order, any president could do it and any president could undo it. That's not how it can be done. Plus, no state has the constitutional right to force a person as a condition of citizenship to buy a product or service against their will. It's unconstitutional, whether it's the state government or whether it's the federal government. The only way to eradicate Obamacare is to pull it out by the root and branch to fully repeal it. It's the only way we're going to get rid of it. And this is why I'm running for the presidency of the United States, because 2012 is it. This is the election that's going to decide if we have socialized medicine in this country or not. This is it. Why? I just have to say this. It's because President Obama embedded $105,464 million in Obamacare in post-dated checks to implement this bill. We are never going to get rid of it unless we have a president committed to getting rid of it. And if you believe that states can have it and that it's constitutional, you're not committed. If you've implemented this in your state, you're not committed. I'm committed to repealing Obamacare.
Thank you. There is much, much more in this Republican presidential debate. The CNN Tea Party debate. Stand by. We're taking another quick break. When we come back, national security, immigration, and a lot more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the CNN Tea Party Republican presidential debate. We're here in Tampa, but we're taking questions from across the country. Let's go to Cincinnati. Please identify yourself and ask the question.
Yes. What would you do? What would you do to remove the illegal immigrants from our country?
Senator Santorum, maybe 11, 12 million illegal immigrants in the United States. What would you do?
I've said this from the very beginning. I'm the son of an Italian immigrant. I believe in immigration. I believe that immigration is an important part of the lifeblood of this country. But what we have is a problem of an unsecure border. Unlike Governor Perry, I believe we need to build more fence. I believe that we need to secure the border using technology and more personnel. And until we build that border, we should neither have stormtroopers come in and throw people out of the country, nor should we provide amnesty. What we should do is enforce the laws in this country with respect to employers, and we should secure the border. And then after the border is secured, then we can deal with the problem that are in this country. But I think it's very important that we understand and we explain to folks that immigration is an important lifeblood of this country, something that I strongly support, and something that we have to do legally if we're going to have respect for the law.
Governor Perry, he mentioned you, so go ahead.
Yes, sir. There's not anybody on this stage that's had to deal with the issue of border security more than I have, with 1,200 miles of Texas and Mexico, and our federal government has been an abject failure at securing our border. We've had to spend some $400 million of Texas taxpayer dollars to send Texas Ranger recon teams down there. Strategic fencing in the metropolitan areas absolutely has a role to play. But the idea that you're going to build a wall from Brownsville to El Paso and go left for another 800 miles to Tijuana is just not reality. What you have to have is boots on the ground. You got to have 4,500 Border Patrol agents trained up, 1,500 National Guard troops. You got to have the aviation assets in the air, putting real-time information down to the law enforcement. We understand and know how to secure that border, but we can't do it alone, and the federal government has to step up and do what their constitutional duty is, and that is to secure the border with Mexico.
Let me just take this quick question from Twitter, and then I want to stay on the subject. What are the candidates doing to attract the Latino voters? Go ahead, Senator Santorum.
Well, I mean, what Governor Perry's done is he provided in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. Maybe that was an attempt to attract the the Latino voters. But you attract Latino voters by talking about the importance of immigration in this country. You talk about the importance of, as Newt has talked about for many years, having English as the official language of this country. And I say that as again, my father and grandfather came to this country not speaking a word of English, but it was the greatest gift to my father to have to learn English so he could assimilate into our society. We are a melting pot, not a salad bowl, and we need to continue that tradition.
Governor Perry, I'm going to move on to Governor Huntsman in a second, but you did sign legislation giving some illegal immigrants in Texas the opportunity to have in-state tuition at universities in Texas. Explain what that
in the state of Texas, if you've been in the state of Texas for 3 years, if you're working towards your college degree, and if you are working and pursuing citizenship in the state of Texas, you pay in-state tuition there. And the bottom line is it doesn't make any difference what the sound of your last name is. That is the American way. No matter how you got into that state, from the standpoint of your parents brought you there or what have you. And that's what we've done in the state of Texas, and I'm proud that we are having those individuals be contributing members of our society rather than telling them, you go be on the government dole.
You heard some boos there, but go ahead, Congresswoman Bachmann. Is that basically the DREAM Act that President Obama wants as well?
Yes, it's very similar, and I think that the American way is not to give taxpayer subsidized benefits to people who've broken our laws or are here in the United States illegally. That is not the American way. Because the immigration system in the United States worked very, very well up until the mid-1960s when liberal members of Congress changed the immigration laws. What works is to have people come into the United States with a little bit of money in their pocket legally with sponsors so that if anything happens to them, they don't fall back on the taxpayers to take care of them. And then they also have to agree to learn to speak the English language, learn American history and our Constitution. That's the American way.
I'm going to bring Governor Huntsman in, but go ahead, Governor Perry.
I'm not for the DREAM Act that they are talking about in Washington, D.C. That is amnesty. What we did in the state of Texas was clearly a states' right issue. And the legislature passed with only 4 dissenting votes in the House and the Senate to allow this to occur. We were clearly sending a message to young people, regardless of what the sound of their last name is, that we believe in you, that if you want to live in the state of Texas and you want to pursue citizenship, that we're going to allow you the opportunity to be contributing members in the state of Texas and not be a drag on our state.
Hold on a second. Governor Huntsman, you also signed legislation in Utah that gave driving privileges to illegal immigrants. Was that a good idea?
Well, first of all, let me say, for Rick to say that you can't secure the border, I think is pretty much a treasonous comment.
I didn't hear that. Did you hear that?
Rick, you know, we can secure the border. We can secure the border through means of fences, through technology, through the deployment of our National Guard troops. We can get it done. In fact, when elected President of the United States, I would work with you and the other 3 border governors to ensure that through your law enforcement officials, you can verify that that border is secure. But I will tell you, before, Wolf, to your direct question, they were given a driver's license before, and they were using that for identification purposes, and I thought that was wrong. Instead, we issued a driver privilege card, which in our state allowed our economy to continue to function. And it said in very bold letters, not to be used for identification purposes. It was a pragmatic, local government-driven fix, and it proved that the 10th Amendment works. We believe in local fixes and solutions.
All right, Governor Romney, you have a problem with either what Governor Huntsman did in Utah or Governor Perry did in Texas?
Yeah, with both, actually. The question began by saying, how do we attract Latino voters? And the answer is by telling them what they know in their heart, which is they or their ancestors did not come here for a handout. If they came for a handout, they'd be voting for Democrats. They came here for opportunity and freedom, and that's what we represent, and that's why we'll win in collecting support from Latinos across the country. And with regards to illegal immigration, of course we build a fence. And of course we do not give in-state tuition credits to people who've come here illegally. That only attracts people to continue to come here and take advantage of America's great beneficence. And with regards to giving driver's licenses to people that are here illegally, again, that creates a patina of legal status. They're sanctuary cities in some parts of the country. One of the things I did in my state was to say, look, I'm going to get my state police authorized to be able to enforce immigration laws and make sure those people who we arrest or put in jail that find out they're here illegally, we're going to get them out of here. We have to recognize that this is the party that believes in supporting the law. We're going to enforce the law. We are the party of opportunity. We're also the party of legal, law-abiding citizens, and that's something we're going to attract with people of all backgrounds.
Go ahead.
Well, as I've said earlier, we basically had a decision to make. Are we going to give people an incentive to be contributing members of this society? Are we going to tell them, no, you're not, we're going to put you on the government dole? In the state of Texas, and this is a states' right issue, if in Massachusetts you didn't want to do that, or if in Utah you didn't want to do that, that's fine. But in the state of Texas, where Mexico has a clear and a long relationship with this state, we decided it was in the best interest of those young people to give them the opportunity to go on to college and to have the opportunity. They're pursuing citizenship in this country rather than saying, you know, we're going to put you over here and put you on the government dole for the rest of your life. We don't think that was the right thing to do, and it's working well in the state of Texas.
I know you want to respond to, because he said that what you did in Utah was a mistake, giving driving privileges to illegal immigrants.
I mean, we could spend all night talking about where Mitt's been on all the issues of the day, and that would take forever. But let me just say that all the Latino voters, Hispanic voters want is opportunity. Can we say that? The greatest thing that we can do for the people in this country is on illegal immigration is fix Homeland Security. I mean, when are we going to have an honest conversation in this country about the root causes? We can't process people. The H-1B visa process is broken. We need to bring in brain power to this country to shore up our economic might. We need to bring in foreign capital to raise real estate prices as well. We need a fixed Department of Homeland Security.
Thank you, Governor. All right, let's take a question from Phoenix. Go ahead, Phoenix. Give us your name.
The United States has an abundance of coal, oil, natural gas, and uranium. The American people have been told for decades that energy independence is a top priority. What will you do in your first 100 days in office to assure the American people that energy independence will finally become a reality?
Mr. Cain.
The first thing that I would do in order to assure that we get on the road to energy independence, and I do believe that we can because we do have the natural resources to do so, we've got to remove some of those barriers out of the way that are being created by the federal government. I would start with an EPA that's gone wild. That's where we start. I would put together a regulatory reduction commission for every agency, starting with the EPA. This Regulatory Reduction Commission, one of my guiding principles is, if you want to solve a problem, go to the source closest to the problem. So the people that I would appoint to that commission will be people who have been abused by the EPA. That would be the commission to straighten out the regulatory burden.
Let's take a question from Twitter. Do you plan to decrease defense spending to balance spending, or do you believe high spending is essential to security? Speaker Gingrich.
I think we are at the edge of an enormous crisis in national security. I think that we are greatly underestimating the threat to this country. And I think the day after we celebrated the 10th anniversary of 9/11, we should be reminded exactly what is at stake if a foreign terrorist gets a nuclear weapon into this country. We have failed for a decade to deal with North Korea. We have failed for a decade to deal with Iran. The developments in Egypt and Turkey are much more dangerous than anybody is looking at in this country. And I think we need, frankly, to ask for a very serious national dialogue. I'd like to see both the House and Senate right now holding hearings on 3 levels of security. What do you do in Mexico, where there's a civil war underway next door to us? What do you do in the Middle East, where we have totally underestimated the scale of the threat? And what do you do about our national domestic industrial base, which is crucial if we're going to be competitive with China? All 3 of those are a major threat to us.
Congressman Paul.
First thing I would like to do is make sure that you understand there's a difference between military spending and defense spending. I'm tired of all the militarism that we are involved in, and we're wasting this money and getting us involved. And I agree, we are still in danger, but most of the danger comes by our lack of wisdom on how we run our foreign policy. So I would say there's a lot of room to cut on the military, but not on the defense. You can slash the military spending. We don't need to be building airplanes that were used in World War II. We're always fighting the last war. But we're under great threat because we occupy so many countries. We're in 130 countries. We have 900 bases around the world. We're going broke. joke. The purpose of al-Qaeda was to attack us, invite us over there where they can target us, and they have been doing it. They have more attacks against us and the American interest per month than occurred in all the years before 9/11. But we're there occupying their land. And if we think that we can do that and not have retaliation, we're kidding ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. What would we do if another country, say China, did to us what we do to all those countries over there? So I would say a policy, a foreign policy that takes care of our national defense, that we're willing to get along with people and trade with people as the founders advised. There's no authority in the Constitution to be the policeman of the world and no nation building. Just remember, George Bush won the presidency on that platform in the year 2000, and I still think it's a good platform.
All right, let me let Senator Santorum respond, because I know you strongly disagree.
On your website on 9/11, you had a blog post that basically blamed the United States for 9/11. On your website yesterday, you said that it was our actions that brought about the actions of 9/11. Now, Congressman Paul, that is irresponsible. A president of the United States running for, someone who's running for the president of the United States in the Republican Party should not be parroting what Osama bin Laden said on 9/11. We should have, we are not being attacked, and we were not attacked because of our actions. We were attacked, as Newt talked about, because we have a civilization that is antithetical to the civilization of the jihadists. And they want to kill us because of who we are and what we stand for. And we stand for American exceptionalism. We stand for freedom and opportunity for everybody around the world. And I am not ashamed to do that.
30 seconds, Mr. Paul.
As long as this country follows that idea, we're going to be under a lot of danger. This whole idea that the whole Muslim world is responsible for this and they're attacking us because we're free and prosperous, that is just not true. Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda have been explicit. They have been explicit, and they wrote and said that we attacked America because you had bases on our Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. You do not give Palestinians a fair treatment, and you have been bombing. I didn't say that. I'm trying to get you to understand what the motive was behind the bombing. At the same time, we had been bombing and killing hundreds of thousands of Iraqis for 10 years. Would you be annoyed? If you're not annoyed, then there's some problem.
All right, we're going to stay on this subject. We have a question from the audience. Go ahead. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Sahar Hikmati. I was brought here by Ronald Reagan. I am from Afghanistan, and my question to you is, as the next President of the United States, what will you do to secure safety and protection for the women and the children of Afghanistan from the radicals?
Governor Huntsman.
We are 10 years into this war, Sahar. America has given its all in Afghanistan. We have families who have given the ultimate sacrifice, and it's to them that we offer a heartfelt salute and a deep sense of gratitude. But the time has come for us to get out of Afghanistan. We don't need 100,000 troops in Afghanistan, nation building at a time when this nation needs to be built. We are of no value to the rest of the world if our core is crumbling, which it is in this country. I like those days when Ronald Reagan, you talked about, when Ronald Reagan would ensure that the light of this country would shine brightly for liberty, democracy, human rights, and free markets. We're not shining like we used to shine. We need to shine again. And I'm here to tell you, Sahar, when we start shining again, it's going to help the women of Afghanistan, along with any other NGO work that can be done there and the collaborative efforts of great volunteer efforts here in the United States. We can get it done, but we have to make sure that the Afghan people increasingly take responsibility for their security going forward.
Very quickly to Governor Perry, $2 billion a week. Is that money well spent by U.S. taxpayers in Afghanistan?
Well, I agree with Governor Huntsman when we talk about it's time to bring our young men and women home as soon and obviously safely as we can. But it's also really important for us to continue to have a presence there. And I think the entire conversation about how do we deliver our aid to those countries, and is it best spent with 100,000 military who have the target on their back in Afghanistan? I don't think so at this particular point in time. I think the best way for us to be able to impact that country is to make a transition to where that country's military is going to be taking care of their people, bring our young men and women home, and continue to help them build the infrastructure that they need, whether it's schools for young women like yourself or otherwise.
Thank you, Governor. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, here's what we're going to do. You're going to get to know these candidates a little bit better. When we come back, what would they add to the White House if they were to move in? We'll be right back. Republican presidential candidates on the stage. You know, Americans are looking at you. They also want to know a little bit more about you. I'm going to start with Senator Santorum. I want to go down and get your thoughts on something you would bring to the White House if you were the next president of the United States. An example, President George H.W. Bush put in a horseshoe pit. President Clinton put in a jogging track. President Obama added a vegetable garden. Senator Santorum, if you're president, what would you bring to the White House?
Well, mine's pretty obvious. Karen and I have 7 children, so we'd add a bedroom and some beds to the White House.
Speaker Gingrich.
Well, first of all, I would reduce the White House by kicking out all of the White House czars the first day, creating a lot more space. And then, because of Callista's interest, we'd have a lot more music. Because of my granddaughter Maggie, we'd have ballet. And because of my grandson Robert, we'd have a very large chess set. So it would all come together.
Congressman Paul.
I'd bring a bushel basket full of common sense. And I would also bring a course in Austrian economics to teach the people the business cycle and why the Fed creates inflation and depressions and all our unemployment problems.
Governor Perry.
It's simple. I'm going to bring the most beautiful, most thoughtful, incredible First Lady that this country's ever seen, Anita.
Governor Romney.
You know, one of my heroes was a man who had an extraordinary turn of phrase. He once said about us, he said, you know, you can count on the Americans to get things right after they've exhausted all the alternatives. And now and then we've made a couple of mistakes, or quite a nation. And this man, Winston Churchill, used to have his bust in the Oval Office, and if I'm president of the United States, it'll be there again.
Congresswoman Bachmann.
I would bring a copy of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights, and that's it.
Mr. Cain.
I would bring a sense of humor to the White House because America is too uptight.
And Governor Huntsman.
And to play into that theme, my wife's going to kill me for saying this, but I would bring as a 40-year motorcycle rider, I would bring my Harley Davidson and my motocross bike.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 8 Republican presidential candidates.
I've had worse.
And that's all the time we have. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a hand to our candidates for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. We want to thank our partners, the Tea Party Express, and 150 Tea Party groups from around the country. Thanks also to our host, the Florida State Fairgrounds. Our next debate here on CNN in Las Vegas, October 18th, with the Western Republican Leadership Conference. We look forward to seeing the candidates and all of you there. The conversation continues online right now on Twitter, Facebook, and CNNPolitics.com. More coverage of this debate with Anderson Cooper 360 right now.